Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, whatever part of the world you're currently listening to our podcast. Thank you for joining me today. It's March the 18th, a Monday. This month is definitely starting to wind down. A few more weeks, and we'll be in April already. Okay. Anyway, I've been reading some news reports, mostly from the West. And, again, it never ceases to baffle me to think about some of these reports that are just being cranked out by news sources throughout the Western world. And one thing that really caught my attention recently is this situation and narrative that French President Emmanuel Macron had stated pertaining to the potential involvement of French troops into Ukraine, which, see this as an extremely very unproductive and counter, you know, intuitive approach to escalating the situation. Why aren't these European countries not interested in drafting some sort of a plan to de-escalate, this conflict between Russia and Ukraine? Even in Washington, D.C., I've still yet to hear anyone, that are, at the top level, top echelon of decision making in our politics, in government in Washington, have yet to talk about finding a way to de-escalate the situation. This is an ongoing war that's just kind of, being, kicked down the road on and on again. And it's really, very, you know, unproductive, in my opinion. Okay, folks, so many people have died already, thousands have been displaced, so many lives have been disrupted. Why aren't these quote unquote officials, quote unquote statesmen, decision maker, not trying to, gather around, the table and hash out some sort of the escalation strategy to end this war conflict? Why can't they participate in a powwow where they can just say, all right, this has gone long enough. Let's figure out a way to escalate the situation. I mean, this is just way too ridiculous, folks. And I'm just, I'm extremely surprised and baffled altogether where, so many of these people that have authority, power, and whatever it is that's been bestowed upon them by their society and their population haven't thought about, bringing everybody between, Ukraine and Russia, to the table and talk about, the escalating the conflict. I mean, it's a 2.5, almost 2.5 years war conflict that could have been prevented back in 2022. Okay. Um, so, I mean, if Ukraine just needed, economic development support, they don't necessarily have to join NATO. They don't necessarily have to join the European Union. All this money that's been, earmarked to go to Ukraine could have just been sent over to Ukraine without this ongoing conflict. Okay, if all these countries are so gung ho to want to help Ukraine and when they want to support Ukraine, we stand for Ukraine. We stand for everything, that Ukraine believes in, whatever. Why don't they just give them the money and let them, build their markets, let them build their society? They don't have to participate, in joining NATO and joining the European Union at all. I mean, this is a conflict that is so unnecessary, in my opinion, folks. Um, Again, so many lives have been snuffed out and people displaced off of a war that could have been de-escalated and basically did away with. I mean, they didn't have to engage in a war conflict. Could have been prevented. Okay, folks. Yeah, so I'm just gonna try to make this whole podcast short because I mean the conflict in itself has been an ongoing issue, for a long time. And they've been having problems between Russia and Ukraine, mostly, just ideological problems that they're being dealing with. They're not really, hard pressed in terms of the overall economic situations in either countries to want to invade each other's country or even participate in a full blown war and bring other countries into the mix. There's really no need for any of that. Not in today's world. I mean, there's so many ways to build a market, to build capacity, to develop, you know, uh, all sorts of job creation initiative in a country, may it be a frontier or emerging market. Okay, folks. So yeah, I think all these European countries, their citizens specifically, should, you know, inform their decision maker to figure out a way to de-escalate the situation. I mean, it's dragging on, which really shouldn't have been, continuing at this length in time. And now I'm glad that Western countries decided to distance themselves from what, Macron had said. And I'm glad that, Washington, D.C. is not interested in, sending troops into Ukraine. Um, but there's no need for a war conflict. Again, if all these countries truly believes in Ukraine, and all these countries in Europe and in the US truly want to support Ukraine, then help Ukraine build itself economically without joining the European Union or NATO. Okay, if you truly want to, preserve peace in the region and bring back, Eastern Europe to normalcy, then just, send the support that Ukraine needs financially to help build capacity in their market. Okay, because this sounds to me as if it's an economic war, and it is an economic war. It's really not tied to any form of land grabbing or any activities that would manifest for a war crisis to take place. Okay, so if Ukraine needs assistance, economic assistance, then all these countries in Europe and including my country in the U.S. should just help them build capacity. Okay, folks. Um, yeah. So again, this is as far as what Macron has mentioned, last month. It's extremely counterproductive to send any troops that are, from NATO member countries into Ukraine. That's the last thing that anybody would want, is to escalate this situation um, further. And even, Russia had mentioned in some previous interview with the West, Russia, Putin himself mentioned that he would be willing to escalate the situation and end the war um, if everybody wants to participate in escalating the situation. But when you have so many people that are calling the shots and basically, navigating through waters that they shouldn't be, navigating in, then nothing will be, solved in terms of this conflict, because there's always going to be those competing forces that will basically bang heads instead of providing a solution. They'll just figure out a way to, escalate a conflict that could have been prevented. Okay, folks. Why aren't all these smart people, quote unquote smart people, quote unquote leaders, quote unquote, politician decision makers in Europe and in the US not interested in de-escalating the situation? I've been trying to, fish out news from all sources, not just in the West, also in, other parts of the world, hoping that I can find a way to, you know, come up with somebody saying, and sharing with the media a way to, create a plan to de-escalate the situation, okay, and promote that, process, actively promote the de-escalation process, not just say, oh, we have these peace, plan or whatever. Actually engage in a democratic process and to escalate the war and bring the region back to normalcy, and stop all these nonsense with all the lives being snuffed out, and an ongoing war that could have been prevented. Okay, folks. Yeah, it's extremely troubling when you read the news. Unfortunately, there's still this lump-sided, agenda within the Western world and news media. Unfortunately, they're not interested in covering everything in full details and that are relevant and valuable and decision making, quality decision making materials that any citizens, regular or people that subscribe in the higher, school of thought, higher learning, would want to participate in. Okay, folks, inform the masses, inform us to the point that we can basically make an educated, decision regarding what it is that you're sharing with us. I'm talking about the West with, I'm talking to the Western media, and also our politicians, to find a way to de-escalate this situation. You know, uh, War is never the answer. I'm not a pacifist. I'm not saying shouldn't happen. I'm saying war in this particular situation need not to happen. Okay, folks. With this said, thank you so much for joining me on my short podcast and video blog. Looking forward to connecting with you again on my next engagement through our Face Economics podcast on Spotify and Amazon Music, and all podcast channels that carry our podcast, Face Economics podcast, the utilization of social media and economic development worldwide, as well as our YouTube channel, Face Economics TV, so you can watch the vlog itself. It's fairly raw, so you can see me, doing all kind of, stuff on my, in front of my camera screen. But it's okay. I know there's some people out there that wants to see me, face to face or somewhat virtually face to face, and see me, conducting my podcast. So that's okay. I'm glad that you guys are still supporting and following our thoughts, and interacting with us. Thank you so much for those that like us and support us, and thank you for those that don't like us and support us either. We're here to basically share our thoughts and inform the public about our ideas and cultivate a solution to the pressing issues that have basically plagued humanity throughout the world for the longest time because they didn't have access to the social media platform. Now with that we do have access to the social media platform, my organization and my specific agenda is to utilize the social media platform to help capacity building, help with capacity building worldwide, to help, you know, influence market development and economic development throughout the world and relieve, people from poverty and lift all boats economically and, protect democracy, the rule of law, freedom of speech, and everything and anything that would help humanity succeed, heading towards this very uncharted territory future. The rise of technology, the rise of artificial intelligence, the rise of social media, obviously, and all these advancements in society worldwide is going to pose a very unique and much harder problem for humanity. There's going to be nefarious evil characters that will be hiding behind the screen, behind an internet, connection, behind, you know, a social media page, behind anything that they can basically, cover themselves while they're, inflicting harm on other people. That's just going to be, something that we all as society, as a world community need to pay attention to and be vigilant on, because we're going to be dealing with a lot of problems that we've never seen ever in human history just because of the rise of technology and the advancement that it brings. It's not a bad thing to have, technology. You just need to basically manage it properly and utilize it to the betterment of society worldwide. Thank you so much, folks, for joining me. My name is Al Mina. Looking forward to connecting with you again. Take care.